The United States is now one step closer to allowing Puerto Ricans to decide on becoming a state, becoming independent, or becoming an associated state.
I favor statehood for Puerto Rico.
That the people of Puerto Rico should have the right to determine their own political future.
And we also love Puerto Rico.
When the people of Puerto Rico make a clear decision, my administration will stand by you.
If Puerto Rico were to become a state, the U.S. flag would gain an extra star, making a historic transformation. This shift would undergo dynamic transformations, ranging from the reconstructed political power and political economy to cultural reformation in Puerto Rico and the mainland. But again, what would statehood entail for Puerto Rico, or for the rest of the United States for that matter? Puerto Rico is an unincorporated territory of the United States with a rich history. In 1898, after the Spanish-American War, Puerto Rico became an American territory. In 1917, Puerto Ricans became citizens of the United States. 1952, Puerto Rico gained Commonwealth status with limited access to social programs. Since then, the island has conducted several referendums regarding statehood, but it remains a territory, which means that its citizens have no voting rights in the presidential elections and minimal voting rights in Congress. Puerto Rico's future has been at the center of heated debate for decades. Should it stay as a territory, pursue independence, or join the United States of America as a state? The current status of Puerto Rico is that of a territory, and its political status grants it some federal privileges, but does not include full state status. It's like many of its residents who serve in the U.S. military, pay federal taxes, but do not pay federal income tax and cannot easily access many federal social welfare programs. As with all the referendums, more and more Puerto Ricans show interest in being a state, still holding on to the possibility that this will provide stability and more funds. At the same time, statehood would also bring significant changes in the political system on the island, its economy, and people's identification. If Puerto Rico becomes a state, the impacts would be transformative in three main areas: political representation, economic structure, and cultural shifts. Political representation. Statehood would grant Puerto Rico all the rights in the U.S. government, changing the overall balance of power in Congress. The impact of the state would mean 2 new Senate seats for Puerto Rico and at least 5 new seats in the House, not to mention more voting members of Congress in a chamber. Supporters of statehood argue that this is a clear case of taxation without representation, as Puerto Ricans contribute to Social Security, Medicare, and other federal programs, but lack full political rights. Opponents, however, fear that Puerto Rico's new congressional seats could shift the political landscape, making statehood a highly contested issue in Washington. Economic structure. Most Puerto Ricans do not pay federal income tax, but they still pay other federal taxes, including Social Security, Medicare, and import tariffs. If Puerto Rico became a state, all residents would be subject to federal income tax, which could increase the tax burden on individuals and businesses. However, in return, the island would gain full access to federal funding for infrastructure, healthcare, and education, which could provide long-term benefits. Statehood could also impact businesses. While more federal investment could boost economic development, higher taxes discourage companies from staying on the island. Some fear this could lead to job losses or economic stagnation, similar to concerns raised when Hawaii became a state. On the other hand, wages could rise due to federal labor laws, improving overall living standards. Balancing these factors would be critical for Puerto Rico's economic future. Cultural shifts. The question of statehood also raises concerns about cultural identity. Puerto Rico has a rich cultural heritage with distinct traditions, languages, and identities that residents fiercely protect. Spanish is the dominant language on the island, and many Puerto Ricans worry that statehood could lead to increased pressure to adopt English as the primary language, especially in government and education. The preservation of Puerto Rican culture is a crucial issue for many residents who fear that statehood might dilute their heritage. While some worry that statehood could erode Puerto Rico's unique identity, others argue that joining the U.S. as a state could elevate its culture, language, and traditions on a larger platform. Statehood could offer greater political power to protect Puerto Rican heritage while fostering a more substantial bilingual presence in the U.S. However, others argue that becoming a state could strengthen Puerto Rican pride and visibility, bringing the island's unique culture to a larger platform within the United States. Counter-arguments. While statehood remains a debated topic, some Puerto Ricans believe the best path forward is complete independence. Pro-independence advocates argue that Puerto Rico could establish a self-sufficient economy, create its trade agreements, and gain full political autonomy. They believe breaking away from the U.S. would allow the island to make decisions without external interference and forge new global partnerships. However, independence also comes with significant challenges. Puerto Rico receives over $22 billion in federal aid annually, supporting healthcare, infrastructure, and social programs. If it became independent, these funds would disappear, potentially leading to economic instability. Additionally, Puerto Rico holds a significant amount of debt. Would the U.S. forgive it, or would the island need to repay it alone? The transition would require careful economic planning to avoid financial hardship. Ultimately, Puerto Rico's future, whether as a state, a continued territory, or an independent nation, depends on the will of its people and Washington's political landscape. Political roadblocks. Even if Puerto Ricans overwhelmingly vote for statehood, political divisions in Washington could prevent it. Many Republicans fear that granting statehood would add 2 Democratic senators and multiple Democratic representatives, shifting the balance of power in Congress. However, Puerto Rico's political landscape is not strictly liberal or conservative, and its electoral leanings are uncertain. Another major obstacle is the U.S. Senate filibuster, which requires 60 votes to pass significant legislation. Since statehood is highly controversial, it would likely face strong opposition, making it difficult to achieve. This is similar to the fight over D.C. statehood, which has been stalled in Congress due to political concerns. While Puerto Ricans may vote for statehood in referendums, the final decision rests with Congress, where partisan battles could delay or even block the process indefinitely. Why this matters. Puerto Rico's statehood concerns would affect the island, but their effects would extend throughout the country. In the political aspect, Puerto Rican representation may alter the U.S. political balance and dynamics in the U.S. Congress on policymaking and legislation across the United States. Many more Puerto Rican votes in presidential elections could potentially and likely alter the results, such as the close ones, as well as change candidate campaigning plans and voter profiles. This would also severely affect the economy, since most factors depend on it. Puerto Rico could receive more federal money from Washington and reconstruct physical plants, provide more social programs, and improve its schools. However, the economic change that Puerto Rico is undergoing might also spark statehood actions similar to those of other territories under the United States, such as Guam and the Virgin Islands. On the cultural level, Puerto Rico's admission as a new state will enrich American culture and identity. The transition could also contribute to the use of translation to increase the rate of bilingual people in the United States and provide multicultural considerations. The issue of choosing Puerto Rico's status is a matter of the state's concern. It could conceivably redefine the American Union and establish new parameters for a U.S. state and people in a multicultural, complex society. Conclusion: it now often appears that Puerto Rico's future is in the balance. Statehood brings political enfranchisement, prosperity, and ethnic boundedness, but the slots questions regarding demarcation, subjugation, and freedom. Does Puerto Rico want to be a state of the United States or a sovereign nation? The answer can reshape both Puerto Rico and the United States. What do you think? If Puerto Rico were to become a state, how would this affect the entire nation? Please comment on this video and discuss your vision for the territories of America below.